Welcome to this episode of End of Life Conversations. I'm Reverend Wakil David Matthews.
And I'm the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Armendariz. In this podcast, we share people's experiences with death and dying, grief and loss, and the end of life.
Every episode, we are so honored and blessed to share stories with amazing, compassionate, and wise guests. So let's get started. We want to thank you all for being here with us. We are so honored to welcome our guest today, Jane Ellen Nickell.
Jane Ellen Nickell is enjoying retirement after serving 16 years as a chaplain of Allegheny College, which followed a career in performing arts, management, and marketing. A native of West Virginia, she currently lives in Meadville, Pennsylvania, with 2 feline companions. In retirement, she keeps busy gardening, cooking, doing yoga, making music, reading, and writing. She also works with Third Act Faith, a group of activists over age of 60 who are addressing climate and democracy. For a college chaplain, death is a relatively rare occurrence, but it is often unexpected and involves losing someone at a young age. The job also involves counseling students who have lost family members.
We're really glad to have you. We like to start with this question. When did you first become aware of death?
Oh, what a good question to start with. I don't know. I was raised in the church, so I was aware of people dying and there being funerals. So that was probably before any of my family members died, would have been when I became aware that this thing happens to us. Mm-hmm. And it makes many people very sad. But I think being raised in the church, there was also that comfort piece sort of built in to how we address grief and loss. Is that there are beliefs about the afterlife, and there is a community of support as you're undergoing this.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember an initial experience with death through your church?
I can't. I'm thinking the first person I was close to who died was probably an older woman who lived in our neighborhood. And I would love to go down and visit her. And I called her Grandma Flanagan. And I was her little Janie. And she ended up, I think, having a stroke, living at her daughter's. I went to see her several times, but she was blind and, not at all the vibrant person I remembered. And so that was very, very sad to me, seeing her like that. And then, so losing her, she was probably there for a couple years before she died. So that was probably my first personal experience of someone who was close to me. And like I said, the dying seemed sadder to me than when she was actually gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the process.
Yeah. She was so much less the person that she had been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk about that several times. We've talked about that in this conversations that we've had about the process itself is the part that we're all maybe most afraid of and most uncomfortable with. And yet it's also can be one of the more sacred and beautiful times in our lives, just being with people in that time. Yeah, thank you. What church, by the way, did you grow up in?
I grew up in a Methodist church.
Okay.
It's now First United Methodist in Buchanan, West Virginia.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So Jane Ellen, how does death impact your story about what you've done for your vocation?
So, as I mentioned, as you mentioned in the bio, you don't deal with death as often. I mean, I had been a church pastor for 3 years, and and I've done funerals for folks that then they just call me to do a funeral. But in my vocational calling and my work as a college chaplain, didn't deal with death often. But when I did, it was always or usually unexpected. Very tragic. We had students hit by cars. We had students die by suicide. We had students overdose. We had a couple of students who died of cancer, and that was equally tragic. We had faculty members who we lost at young ages of ovarian cancer. But as I was thinking in terms of end of life conversations, we didn't have those because this was a community of 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds who they didn't think they were near the end of their life. There were a couple of staff members who I was part of those conversations with them as they were sick and dying, but it was more grief support after someone died, and especially helping young people come to terms with, oh my gosh, I just talked to her yesterday afternoon and now she's gone. And that sort of suddenness, and again, the unexpected nature of losing someone at such a young age. So I think that's why I offered to chat with you all, Joaquin, when you told me about this work, was that it's not what you tend to think of as grief support or end of life conversations because of the specific community that I was working with.
Wow.
Is there a specific story that you can think of that you might want to share with us? Obviously not names or anything, but just something that was very impactful in your life in that time.
Well, just this year, I mean, I retired 2 years ago and we had a student die of an overdose. And part of this work, again, is you don't know how much you can share with the students who ask, well, how did it happen? And it's like, well,
yeah.
HIPAA and again, as a pastor, what they share with me about the situation is not necessarily something that I can share with students. So they actually asked me to come and help deal with that. And we had a gathering. Students, faculty, the president came, and just hearing those students, giving them a place to process,
Right.
to talk about, what they remembered about this person, the impact that she made literally in about 2 months here, because she was a first-year student, and realizing that this student made a huge impact on the people that she knew while she was here, and that they would not forget her, possibly because it was the first time they'd lost someone. Not necessarily that they were close to, because many had lost grandparents, but a peer, someone in their age group, their age cohort had died. So I always say at times like that the hardest part of this job is when someone dies, because it is usually unexpected. But the best part is the way the community comes together, support each other at a time like that. And that was certainly the case with this loss. There was another time a student, and that was a year, I think we had 5 deaths in 1 year.
Wow.
Faculty member and 4 students. And this was a student who didn't come back from winter vacation. The dean of students reached out to the family and they said, well, the student passed away. And of course, we expressed condolences. What can we do? And they said, we don't want a big announcement. We don't want you to do a lot on campus about this. Okay, so what do we do? Because and this happened to be the 3rd student out of the same department that the faculty member that year had died. So this was the 4th person that department had lost in a year. And it's a small department. So we did, communicate to the faculty. Someone from the counseling center and I went to all the classes with majors in them and delivered the news. We're there to answer questions. And I just said to the dean of students, if there are especially students, but anyone on campus that needs to get together and have a place to talk about this student, I'm going to do that. It doesn't really matter to me what the family wants at this point. My role is to help this community get through this loss. And he said, that's fine. So we didn't do a service. We had a gathering. The food service provided some pizza. We had note cards and things that folks could write notes to his family, and we just spent some time, an afternoon together, and just but they needed that space. Center always was like, oh, we don't want to trigger them. We can't get them talking about the person too soon. I'm like, no, they need to talk about the person.
Yeah.
Now they're just thinking that, one was a student who took his life and they found him on campus. Friends of his found him. I'm like, that's all they have right now in their mind, finding his body. And they need to remember this student alive. They need to get back to those memories.
Yeah.
Jane Ellen, that is really powerful story that you share with us, because I feel like I have heard people who don't want their death to be not necessarily broadcast, but like almost selfishly not even contact family members.
Yeah.
And it's strange to me, but I've up until this very moment, I've been like, well, that's their prerogative, But I also know, there was like about 5, 6 years ago, I was at a funeral home, and this particular funeral home had had less and less funerals. And he said, it's strange, but people don't want to actually do this. And they have this online like pictures and people can talk there, but that's about all that they offer. And this person was like, I know it sounds like I want them to come here to make money, but people need to process the loss. And when you don't offer a space for it, it really isn't healthy. Can you can we talk about this? Like, what makes families choose to not give, a story, a solace? Like, I don't like, I'm curious about this right now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I think that the impetus sometimes is, oh, I don't want people talking about me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's someone who's so shy or introverted or whatever, or I think non-religious people are like, well, what would they say? What is there to say? But um, it's a ritual. Ritual exists in our world for a reason.
Mhm.
And that ritual of passage, of acknowledging that this person has transitioned out of this life to whatever
Mhm.
they believe comes afterwards. And it's actually interesting. I have done more end of life gatherings, I will say, for faculty in the last few years than I did the first 10 years, because so many of them are not religious.
Mhm.
And so, whereas a faculty member 10 years ago probably would have had a church community, that's where they would have had a service, whatever. Now the family's coming to me going, we really want to do something. And the college was the community that meant the most to them.
Yes.
We actually had a professor who was an atheist. And so I had to say right up front when we started the service, I am here in a ceremonial role, not in a ritual, in a religious role.
Mhm.
And we're going to honor this person's life in the way that they lived and what they believed, because
Mhm.
it's about, helping the whoever's left, friends, family, community, um, acknowledge the loss, but we tend to call them celebrations of life, because that's what we
Mhm.
do ultimately, is celebrate the life they lived, the ways they touched people. When at all possible, we give people the chance to say something, and if it's a more formal setting or a large crowd, it'll often be a sheet of paper in there. We'll put a sheet of paper and say, please write down your memories of this person that we can share with the family later. And again, I think it's just people need that space and time
Mhm.
to acknowledge this person who's been connected to them, sometimes for a very short time and sometimes for their whole life, if it's a parent or a grandparent.
Mhm. I really like what you say about this ritual being needed. And I really would like to spread the good news that ritual is not necessarily a Christian or a religious
Hmm.
process. Never. I mean, we ritualize any little quotidian activity, and the loss of somebody can be ritualized without this kind of the hallmark of religion.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always very careful. I've done a number of funerals. The funeral home here calls me periodically. And, my question always is, was this person religious? What did they believe about the afterlife?
Mm-hmm.
Do they believe they're going home to Jesus? Do they believe they're going to see their family members? I'm like, yeah, then let's celebrate. And if
Mm-hmm.
not, then we talk about how they're going to continue in the memories
Hmm.
of them, and the stories that people will continue to tell about them.
Mm-hmm.
Mandy Patinkin quotes a line, and I'm not going to remember where it's from, but I could find it. That as long as someone on earth still remembers your name, the person has not left this world.
Mm-hmm.
One person who still knows their name. How important that is, naming people and keeping those names and stories alive.
Yeah.
I've actually working this week, Joaquin, I was glad when you expressed gratitude for our ancestors, because my mom's father died when she was 3 years old.
Mm.
And so this man never lived to be a grandfather, but he was my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always been kind of the shadowy figure, but I've been doing some genealogical work on him. He went to college, he taught school. I found his college yearbook with pictures of him everywhere, all the activities he was in. And it was like suddenly this person who was just sort of a name has come to life for me. And I've been putting together his story to share with my siblings and my cousins. We just always knew our parents would talk about daddy this, daddy that. And I had interviewed my mom's older brother and sister who remembered him better. And so I was, weaving in some of their stories, but it's just, it's just seeing pictures of him as a young man and reading about what he did in college. I'm thinking he was the age then of the students that I worked with as a chaplain.
Wow.
And what it's been to sort of discover him. And, I have one of his books that he used in college, and I was an English major. So, seeing his notes around some of the things has really been a gift.
Nice.
So beautiful. Yes.
Died at age 42, he died 90 years. But yeah, his memories for someone who never knew him has just come alive for me.
Yeah. What a great example of that. What you said, that as long as someone still knows your name, there's still a piece of you there, at least in memory and in our community. The community holds you, so that's sweet. And I think that's part of why we do ritual, is that reminder to remember the beauty of the person and to hold those things that we will continue to hold, that person brought to us. So one of the questions we love to ask is, what are your biggest challenges? And what were your biggest challenges, or maybe still are your biggest challenges in working in this community?
So working with a specific college population I was dealing with?
Sure, yeah.
You mean around death or?
All around death.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be tempting to say, well, it's that they didn't want to talk about death, but they actually did. We had the students put together, students of the Interfaith Club started talking about how the last week of October, there's all these holidays around end of life, Samhain and All Saints and All Souls and Halloween. And so they started doing what they called Beyond the Grave Week, and they look at how different religions deal with the afterlife. And we actually brought in people to do a death cafe for one of those, thinking, students probably wouldn't come, but we did. We had students who showed up who talked about, deaths that they had experienced. So I guess that didn't answer your question, because that wasn't really a challenge.
Well, but the challenge is the assumption.
Yes.
The assumption that people are not going to be talking about death.
Yeah.
And yet when you open up the door and create the space for it to be acknowledged, people will come.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another challenge was probably just, pastoring students who had experienced a loss. And the counseling center director and I one year had a group for students who'd lost immediate family members, because they found that, their friends would kind of be really supportive at the time, but then they go, oh yeah, my grandfather died. It's like, well, it's not the same thing as your father. Or,
right.
Oh yeah, it's not the same thing as a brother. Or I reached out to one of the students to let them know we were going to do this. And she said, I just wept when I got your email, because none of my friends asked about my brother anymore. They think I should be over it.
Yeah.
I will miss him every day of my life. So being able to have some students in a room together who've experienced a close loss like that.
Right.
I think their peers were just uncomfortable with a death that was that close and didn't know how to respond.
That's it right there, Jane Ellen. It's I'm not certain that people are uncomfortable with the conversation as much as they don't want to say the wrong thing. I've actually had calls from people, just random friends, who will be like, oh, my husband's grandmother died and he's really upset, but I don't know what to say. And I'm like, you say, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And you just sit there with them if they need to be like, just acknowledge that they are going through this. So I think it's also helping people learn how to bear witness to a loss.
And I think, I tell people when I went into ministry, one of the most important things to learn was I can't fix everything.
That's right.
Being there is enough.
Right.
Asking the question, saying, I am so sorry. What can I do? I remember asking a friend years ago, before I even went into ministry, I had a close death. And I asked her several months later how she was doing. And she said, thank you so much for asking. No one does anymore.
Right.
I still need to talk about this. So
yes.
Checking in, it's your first Christmas without this person. Isn't this when their birthday is? How are you doing?
Mhm.
If they may not want to talk about it,
Mhm.
but they may.
Yeah.
Just the act of asking is enough to
Mhm.
just so you haven't forgotten them. You understand this is hard.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the holidays because
Mhm.
I think this is particularly a time of year when it's important to check in with your beloveds and your friends and say, how are you doing? We all miss
Mhm.
this person. And I was just saying, I also think sometimes it helps to speak to what that person meant to you. And just say, oh, I really miss that person too, and I wonder how you're doing right now. Yeah,
Mhm.
because this can be a really tough time of year.
Yeah, it is. And it's just almost you're expected to be happy right now.
Right, exactly.
And especially, I had a student who came to me and said, my grandfather died on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
Mm.
So it's a horrible time of year for me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so again, acknowledging that not anyone who's lost a loved one might really be missing them around the holidays, but especially people who've had a loss around this time of the year when
Right.
Yeah,
it, Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, happy, happy,
Mhm.
happy. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not. It's not a happy time.
hmm
Right. And just for our listeners, we are recording this before the Christmas holidays. So that's why this is all part of it. Conversation.
yeah. Probably won't actually be up until after that, but
Yes.
Okay.
But I also wanted to, and I've been thinking about this because I'm hosting a solstice celebration this Thursday night. And I've been writing down the ceremony that I'm going to be offering. And I actually am going to create a small space here for people who can talk about their grief. And their grief, even like my refrigerator died, and it's just been so taxing, right? And there have been losses for pets, and there's loss for hope around world peace. I mean, there's a lot of different types of grief that we encounter that we don't help kind of have conversation. Not even a conversation. I feel like people just want to be like, I'm really sad about this.
Yeah.
And then saying, I see this. Like, let's just sit here together. Right. And this holiday is also about loss because we've lost the light, right? Like it's dark, it's hard, it's cold. So I want to start also normalizing that the holidays at the end of the year are not all about happy. It's about holding both of them.
hmm
Exactly. And it's a time, again, we shy away from the dark.
Light it up.
That's such important time. It's time that the earth needs. It's time that we need. When you
Mhm.
stay indoors, you're not out doing, but you maybe stay in and do more reflection.
Mhm.
We need that time of rest as much as the earth.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's rarely acknowledged in our crazy world that
Mhm.
work harder, make more stuff, buy more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is that Anna Louisa, turn on the lights, light it all up. Don't,
yeah.
Yeah.
there's so much beauty in darkness and it's such an important, light would mean nothing if there was no darkness.
That's right.
And, joy would mean nothing with no grief.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
oh,
we have a blessing in both.
that's right. What do you need to feel supported in your work? Because you continue to do a little bit of, sounds like chaplaining, right?
Yeah. Having my own support system,
Mhm.
having my own family, friends, people. I was thinking, just kind of thinking about this conversation and end of life. And like I said, I hadn't had too many end of life conversations, but there was a staff member who I had gotten to be friends with, and I knew he was struggling with illness and some health issues and some faith issues. And, they came in my office one day and said that this person had taken his life and they needed me to go talk to his department. And, it was like, okay, I got to get in chaplain mode. And I just had to kind of set aside my own loss of this friend and,
Mm.
Someone who did know something of his inner life, realizing, oh my gosh, what did I miss? What happened? And so being able to call my brother, who's a psychiatrist, in the evening and say, this just happened to me. What, And he said, what did I miss? How did I not see this coming? Blah, blah, blah. And to be able to have his support and his counsel. And, what he said was, if someone is determined to die by suicide, they don't give you hints.
Mhm.
It's, and so he said, you didn't miss anything, but
Mhm.
that was important for me to be present to the other folks who were grieving, was to be able to have those people who would be there and let me do the same thing.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
my own lament and tears and questions. And so that's one thing, is just having support. Yeah.
I'm grateful for your brother.
Yeah, I am too, all the time. Yeah. Yeah, we just lost our own mom in August at 94.
Mm.
Lived in her house, fought tooth and toenail to stay in the house she and Dad built 60 years ago. With none of us living nearby,
Mm.
Mm.
but we managed. We managed to. She had wonderful community, friends. We got down there as much as we could. We all ended up being there with her when she died, and celebrated her life and her birthday. She was 3 weeks shy of 94.
Mm.
Mm.
And promised we'd tell everyone she lived to 94.
Beautiful. I honor that.
She was 93.93 years old, so it was pretty
Close enough. Close enough. Round up.
Yeah.
yeah, just in that loss, just being able to be with each other. And we each have our moments, and it's like, yeah, I was doing pretty well until this happened, or I ran into this picture, I remembered her saying this. And so just the
Sweet.
people
Sweet.
part of your family and help you through that.
Yeah.
Mm.
What other resources do you have to stay centered and grounded and do the work that needs to be done?
I'm not sure how to describe my own faith right now, because I was actually just talking to someone about third act faith, and how many of us have multiple religious connections. You tend to think of younger people not being a single path, but there are many of us who list, well, I was raised, it's like, for me, I was raised Methodist. I'm now preaching at a UU church sometimes. I'm always resonated with Buddhism and paganism. And so sort of my own beliefs in a force of good that pervades the universe, that energy of life that is through and everything. But traditionally we call that God. Fine, that works for me. But just that constant presence of some good, that even when you're going through loss or darkness or hard times, you know that there is life. And that's sort of, I always talk about the evergreens in the wintertime, that when everything else dies off, you still have that little green. There is still life, there are buds, things will come back. And so that sense of, I guess, a cyclical understanding of life.
Mhm.
And that it's not this uphill or downhill. It's things come up and down and they circle back around, and that sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ebb and flow.
Yeah, I've heard someone say that the expression you should use when things are really good or really bad is, this too shall pass.
Yes.
We tend to say it only when things are bad, but even when things are really good, just a reminder,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's not how it goes all the time. So enjoy it,
Mhm.
remember it,
Mhm.
but don't expect it to be this way.
Right.
Yeah.
That's life,
Yeah.
It's
I always call those my bliss bubbles. And I literally have a sensation that I'm in a like, what are those like soap bubbles that anything can pierce it really quickly.
yeah.
But in a moment of absolute sheer joy, I'll be like, I'm in the bliss bubble. And I know in a minute it's gonna just like poof.
I enjoy what I can. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the image that I use a lot, I have a musical background, and so a lot of my spirituality and things like that come more through music than through words. Is a movement in the Brahms Requiem. It's the third movement, and there's a passage where the text is, the righteous are held in the hand of God.
Mm.
And underneath the whole, voices and instruments doing this whole big double fugue, the string basses just play the same note, just this constant, unwavering bass pedal to this whole movement. And that there is that, no matter what's going on up here, there is that constant underlying,
Mhm.
you can't fall, they're through.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
That
That is
hand
so
is holding us there. So
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, so Jane Ellen, What frightens you about the end of life?
Good question. That this will all end. I think I was visiting a patient in the hospital once who said, all of us want to go to heaven, but none of us want to die. We like this life. We like Earth. We like what we have here. At least many of us do. I should not say everyone, I know.
Yeah, I'd be the one.
But yeah, just having to lose all this or leave all this behind. I have always sort of tried to use as a measure of how my life is going. If I died today, would that be all right?
Mm-hmm.
Not is my soul in the right state, but have I done what I was to do in this life? And I'm like, okay, and if I felt like there was some lack or no, there's this goal out there I haven't met yet, and how important is that goal really? Do I need to sink so much into it? Or if so, then how do I get there? But just, am I living a life that I would be happy to leave?
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave. I'm kind of excited to see if there's something on the other side.
Me too.
I'm curious about it. I have no idea. I tell people, oh, they say, oh, I'm going to be reunited with my husband. I'm like, yay! Come back to tell us if that happens. But yeah, I hope so. I hope that in some way there's a reuniting with the energy of the people who have been part of our lives on this earth. But
right.
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
There's a real curiosity, My Jewish friends say, nope, this is it. You die, boom, lights out. You're done.
Yeah.
Like, well, in that case, then better make the best we can at this time.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. So I have a real curiosity.
Every day, every breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been great. I think we're getting close to the end here. Is there anything else, Ana Luisa, that you can think of, or anything, Jane Ellen, that you wish we would have asked?
Not on my end. No, this has been a rich conversation.
It has. It's been delightful for me to listen to you.
Yeah, we've enjoyed it very much.
Mm-hmm.
So have I. Thank you.
Well, let's end with a poem. And every week we offer a little poem, and we ask our guests if they'd like to share a poem. And Jane Ellen, you brought a poem today, and you wanted to read something as well from your mom, right?
Did. Yeah, my mom kept a journal, and she had said something when she was still alive that indicated it would be okay for us to read them. So still plenty to go through, but one of the ones I opened, she had this written inside the front cover. Motto to live by. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in an attractive and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in sideways, chocolate in one hand, latte in the other, body thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and screaming, woohoo, what a ride. So, I don't know who that was from. It's not my mom. She's not a latte drinker, but otherwise that's pretty much how she lived her life.
Beautiful.
And joyfully. So that I thought of that when I read this poem by Mary Oliver called When Death Comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
Saint Mary Oliver.
Mary Oliver, Saint Mary.
Yes.
Such a beautiful writer and such a beautiful poem. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the part that sticks with me is I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness.
Mhm. And I was smitten with the next little paragraph. And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. Ah, so wonderful. Jane Ellen.
Yeah, I like her note that I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular.
Mhm.
Not only is every person valuable, but every flower is.
Ah,
Right. Beautiful.
Oliver.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. This has been a really delightful conversation. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. We really
Yes.
appreciate you. We appreciate your work and your willingness to have this conversation with us. And it
Mhm.
lifts all of us up.
Mhm.
Well, friends, we have a special treat for you in our next episode. We will feature several stories from our friends as memorials to loved ones they have cared for or accompanied through the death journey. It is our honoring of the holiday of the heart, Valentine's Day.
And we still want to hear from all of you. We know there are many poignant and moving stories, and we are excited to share them. You can email us at endoflifeconvo@gmail.com. It's endoflifeconvo@gmail.com.
Till next time, much love.
Adios. Thanks so much for joining us on the End of Life Conversations. We appreciate you and look forward to sharing our stories. Thanks to my daughter Lucero and Nico Rush, who have cheerfully assisted us as our editors and tech support. Additional resources, transcript of this episode, and links to our social media will be in the podcast notes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please subscribe, tell your friends, follow us on social media, and consider supporting us through Patreon. We want to acknowledge that the music we are using was composed and produced by Charles Heastand.